Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. This podcast is all about our journey into the woods of ourselves, getting to know who we are, and where we're going in life so that we can create the life that we want to live. It's about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. It's also about mindset. Our beliefs are such an important part of this journey, and there are so many ways for us to change our mindset so that we can more easily live a life of expansive joy. This podcast is also about going literally into the woods and spending time in nature, and how that can help us on our own personal journey of self-knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 369. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today, I'm going to talk about stepping outside of your comfort zone through outdoor adventures. Now, this is something that's obviously very close to my heart. It's a topic that's of great interest to me, and it's something that I've been talking about a lot lately, both on the blog and on the podcast. I've been blogging lately about the advantages of solo hiking and the advantages of traveling alone. And those are two ways that I'll be talking about later about how you can step outside of your comfort zone. On the podcast, last week's episode 368 with Yvette Webster, we talked about how to take your hiking to the next level and really up your game with hiking. Episode 367, I talked about finding yourself through solo travel and outdoor adventures. So this is something that's very important to me. And it's something that I've always enjoyed. So when I used to run my walking group for women in my area, which I really enjoyed and I really missed, and starting to try to think of ways that I might be able to add that into my life. I'm trying not to add more things to my schedule, but I really miss guiding walking groups. So maybe the time is coming for new walking adventures. But when I used to run that group, it was a meetup group, and I used to get a lot of women contacting me saying, "Why are your walks so long?" Because they were all at least 9 or 10 miles, usually between 9 and I think the longest one was 13. So they were considerable walks, mostly because I don't enjoy shorter walks. I really like to get into it and get out there for a good 10-mile hike. But I used to get messages from women saying, "I'm not used to hiking 10 miles. The longest I've ever done is 5 miles. I don't know what to do. I want to go." And I would always encourage them to come with us because it was a slow walking group. I mean, I tried to keep the pace fairly slow. I tried to create rest stops for people. I tried to make it easy for people who weren't used to walking as much as I was to get out there and join us. And people were always really pleasantly surprised at how easy it was for them to stretch from 5 miles to 10 miles. So I really, really enjoy encouraging others to get out of their comfort zone with their outdoor adventures and do new things. So let's get into this episode. What is your comfort zone? Let's start by talking about that. So your comfort zone is a situation where you feel safe, where you feel at ease. Now, your comfort zone is not necessarily a bad thing. It's really nice to feel safe and at ease in your life. You don't want to be constantly stressed or panicked. However, when you want to create change in your life, you may need to step outside of your comfort zone. So another very interesting definition of comfort zone that I found online was a settled method of working that requires little effort and yields only barely acceptable results. That's pretty harsh. But if you think about that applied to your life, think of it as a settled method of living or a settled lifestyle that requires little effort because you've been doing it for a while and gets you the same results you've been getting. So again, if you want to change your situation and grow or have new experiences, you're probably going to have to step outside of your comfort zone. Setting goals and working to achieve goals usually involves stepping outside of your comfort zone. And I think it's important to acknowledge that when you step outside of your comfort zone, there are a couple different zones that exist outside of your comfort zone. So there's your stretch zone, which is just, a step or two outside of your comfort zone. It's something that maybe feels a little uncomfortable, it feels challenging, but it's doable. Then there are things, the area beyond your stretch zone is the panic zone. So there are things that you could do that would really stretch you beyond that stretch zone and make you panic. So maybe if you're used to day hiking in your local area on trails that you know in a lowland area, than, I don't know, maybe traveling abroad to the Himalayas and trying to do a solo hike on your own in the mountains. That might lead to stepping into your panic zone. And there are ways that you can stretch yourself to get from here or there if hiking in the Himalayas is your goal, or climbing Kilimanjaro, or any of those things that are a big challenge if you're used to hiking in lowland areas. So be aware that when you get outside of your comfort zone, that you step into the stretch zone and don't leap straight into the panic zone. You can get to things, and I think this is an important thing. Your stretch zone can stretch little by little, and as you stretch it in one area of your life, it will stretch comfort zone in other areas of your life. So what today may be in your panic zone, a week, a month, 3 months, a year from now may be in your stretch zone, because you stretched your comfort zone to the point where what was previously in the panic zone is now in your stretch zone. Hope that made sense. That felt kind of rambly. But the point is, you can grow it. What is in your panic zone today may not be in the future, and hopefully won't, because hopefully you'll be stretching your comfort zone little by little. So again, why would you want to get out of your comfort zone? Because you want to create desired change in your life. So maybe you've set some goals, you want to achieve those goals, and taking the actions that you need to take to achieve those goals involves stepping outside of your comfort zone. Now, for many, many years, I talked about PSYCH-K and how I used PSYCH-K to help me take the actions I needed to take to achieve my goals. And that's a great tool. I will link to that in the show notes so you can check it out. It's basically a tool that helps you to reprogram your subconscious mind, and that can help it make it easier for you to achieve your goals and take actions that are outside of your comfort zone. But at the end of the day, you need to take those actions. There were a couple of clients, one client in particular I can think of that I worked with for a brief time, who wanted to create this desired change in his life. He had this one goal that he wanted to achieve, and he just wasn't taking the action. We were doing the PSYCH-K, we were doing the work, and he still wasn't taking the action. And that was why I later made it so clear to my clients that not only do you need to do the work to change your mindset, but you also need to take practical action. It's not just going to happen by magic. You need to do something. So changing your mindset is really good and very important, but you still need to take that action. The thing is that doing the mindset work will make it easier for you to take that action. It'll make it less challenging. It'll make it less scary. So why else would you want to get out of your comfort zone? You might want to improve your life by achieving your goals or creating desired change. You might want to change your job. You might want to change your partner. You might want to move to another area. A lot of those things are really scary. And getting outside of your comfort zone will help you to face your fears, because doing things that are outside of your comfort zone feel challenging. They feel scary. And when you face little smaller fears, it's like you're building your fear muscle, and it makes it easier to face bigger fears. It's something that I've seen time and time again. Why else would you want to get out of your comfort zone? Personal growth, just general growth. All of these things that I mentioned, creating change, achieving goals, improving your life, facing fears, those are all parts of personal growth. So if you want to grow as an individual, it's really useful to set the goal of stepping outside of your comfort zone, encouraging yourself to step outside of your comfort zone, giving yourself permission to step outside of your comfort zone on a regular basis. Because like I said, it's like a muscle. So the more often you do it, the more often you get used to stepping outside of your comfort zone, the easier it will be. If you have been stuck living years inside your comfort zone, it's going to be harder to take the first step. But that's okay. Just do it. Start with something small and keep doing things, and it will get easier and easier. This is really, really important. It gets easier. And if you're feeling stuck in your life, if you're feeling stuck, you don't know what's wrong, it doesn't feel right, life feels crappy, that might just be because you've been inside your comfort zone without moving out of it for a long time. Your comfort zone hasn't changed. And while it maybe used to be comfortable, now perhaps it's not so comfortable and it's starting to get yucky. And you're getting that itching feeling like you want change. If you're feeling that, that's another good reason to step outside of your comfort zone. And again, start small. Don't leap into your panic zone. Do something small. So let's talk about how you can get out of your comfort zone with outdoor adventures. And again, I think that using outdoor adventures to get out of your comfort zone will help you with other areas of your life. So maybe you're afraid of public speaking. Obviously, it would be useful to go to something like Toastmasters or another speaking club, because that will help you to practice in a safe situation. However, you might be even too scared to join Toastmasters. By getting out of your comfort zone with outdoor adventures, that will help you do the challenging thing, that is, go to Toastmasters, for example. I use this example a lot because so many people are afraid of public speaking, and for me, joining Toastmasters changed my life. Absolutely. So, let's start by something easy. If you're used to going hiking or walking in a group, then try going hiking on your own. Like I said, I've been blogging a lot and talking a lot about solo hiking and solo travel, and I think that's a great way to step outside of your comfort zone. Conversely, if you're used to going hiking on your own and you're afraid of going hiking with a group because perhaps you think that the group might be more challenging than you're used to, or you're afraid of hiking with other people, or you're afraid of having to not keeping up with the pace or walking too fast, then it might be a good idea for you to go hiking with a group. There are so many hiking groups and walking groups on Meetup, and while I know we're still in this COVID situation and you'll have to maintain social distancing, I have seen lots of outdoor groups getting outdoors while maintaining social distancing. So it is possible now. So go on meetup.com and find a group. Again, be mindful to step into your stretch zone and not your panic zone. So again, if you're used to easy hiking in the lowlands, don't sign up to go with a group and hike up Snowdon, for example, or any other mountain. Do something that's a small stretch. One of the reasons I like walking alone and hiking alone so much is that I can set my own pace. I really don't like, this sounds terrible now that I'm talking about stretching out of my comfort zone, but I don't necessarily like the challenge of going with other people because I do enjoy walking at a slower pace. I like enjoying the scenery. I don't like just putting my head down and forging up a mountain or up a hill. I like to enjoy the journey. So I'm very mindful when I go hiking or walking with other groups that they are going to be going at my own pace because that's not something that I personally want to challenge myself with. I want to enjoy the journey. I want to enjoy being outdoors. I don't want to just push myself to get up a hill. So do what works for you. Next, you could learn something new in the outdoors. So I just got back from a 5-day advanced bushcraft course, which I did at the Woodcraft school. I think I've mentioned this a few times already. I've certainly mentioned it on the blog and on social media, I think. But it was an excellent course. Like, I did stuff that I was not used to doing. I learned stuff that I had never done before. Like, we sawed down trees to harvest the wood, to make pot holders, to boil water, to carve a spoon. I don't even know what else we did. We learned so many things and practical things that there may be a situation when I use them. But it was stuff that I'm not used to. Oh, fire by friction. My nemesis is the bow drill. If you don't know what that is, Google it. It's awful. It takes ages to learn. It's the kind of thing that takes ages to learn, but once you get it, it's easy. I'm not at that point yet. I'm still at the struggling point. But yeah, I'll link to bow drill in the show notes. It's rough. And it was frustrating. But I was really surprised, and so I was totally outside of my comfort zone. But I was totally surprised to see how, even though I was frustrated sometimes, I still kept at it. Like, I didn't give up, and I didn't use it as an excuse to feel bad about myself, which I would have in previous years. It was just like, I'm doing this new thing, like I'm not good at it, it's hard, it's not coming easily to me, I'm just going to keep going at it. That was kind of my attitude. And so that was really, really positive to see how much I've changed. Whereas before I would have used it as an excuse to, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, other people can get it, other people have already got it, I can't do it. I would have used it as an excuse to feel bad about myself, and I didn't. So that was pretty awesome. And it was a huge stretch outside of my comfort zone. So other things you can learn in the outdoors. You can learn plants. At that same Woodcraft school, I took a plant identification class last year, which was 5 days. Excellent. I'm also doing a wildlife tracking and observation course with them. Really, really good and totally outside of my comfort zone because I'm really not good at looking at little footprints in the mud and seeing what it is. So it's good. It's really useful. It's taking me outside of my comfort zone, totally not in my panic zone. And I think that's the good thing about learning something new in the outdoors is that you are getting guided by the instructor or the teacher, and you're in a safe environment to learn something new, and it's still taking you outside of your comfort zone. You might want to learn, basket weaving, mushroom picking, foraging. There's so many things that are safe to learn in the outdoors that you can do that will still take you out of your comfort zone. Because I really find that learning something new really stretches my comfort zone in terms of mental learning. So this is good stuff. How else can you get out of your comfort zone in the outdoors? You can hike a longer trail or route. So if you're a day hiker, instead of hiking 5 miles, try hiking 7 miles. Next time, try hiking 10 miles. Extend your day hikes. You can also extend your routes. So when walking long distance trails, the longest I've ever done is my first trail, which is the South Downs Way, which is 100 miles. After that, I hiked the Ridgeway, which was 87 miles. And I haven't gone beyond that. I really want to hike a longer trail. So earlier this year, I was supposed to do the Camino Portugués, which was going to be about 2 weeks. And I was super looking forward to that. Then COVID struck, so I'm not going to do that until 2022. But next year, I really want to hike a longer trail probably in Scotland. I want to do the Southern Upland Trail. I really want to do the Cape Wrath Trail. Those are huge stretches outside of my comfort zone because I'm going to be hiking and camping rather than staying at B&Bs. That's another thing that I wanted to propose. So for example, when I do my long distance trails in England, I stay at B&Bs. Now, some trails have campgrounds all along them where you can camp. Wild camping is not legal in England in most parts. There are some parts where it is. But in Scotland, of course, you can wild camp just about anywhere as long as you're respectful about where you camp and don't pitch up next to someone's house. So use common sense. But I'm used to staying at B&Bs, which is nice. It's easy. But I love camping, so I really want to do a longer trail where I can camp instead of staying in B&Bs. And that's probably going to be how I stretch myself outside my comfort zone next year on my next long distance route. Next is extend your adventure. So if you're a day hiker, try a weekend hike. I wrote 2 books on great weekend trails, the Wey-South Path and the Downs League. They're both really great trails for people who are new to long distance hiking and walking. They're super easy trails. They're fairly flat. There's a couple of hilly bits, but they're really easy trails. I will link to those in the show notes, but think about how you can extend from a day hike to a 2 or 3 day trip. I think that's a really great way of getting into longer trails. Unfortunately, I didn't do that. I went straight for the 100-mile hike. I would have learned a lot, and I probably would have spared myself some pain if I had just done a 2 or 3 day hike first. So if you're a day hiker, expand to a weekend hike. If you're already done weekend hikes, expand to a week-long hike, or jump from a day hike to a weekend hike, or a week-long hike as I did. It's totally doable, especially if you're in lowland conditions like I was in the South Downs Way. Totally doable. So figure out how you can extend your existing adventures, the things that you really love. Maybe you're not a hiker, maybe you're not a walker, maybe you're a cyclist. So go on a longer trail. Next, you could go hiking or walking or cycling or whatever your thing is in a new environment. Go to more remote territory. So that's one of the things that really appeals to me about hiking in Scotland, and particularly the Cape Wrath Trail, is that it's so remote. I really love places that are remote. And it's shocking to think that there are places on the South Downs Way, there are places on the Wey-South Path that are in southeast England that yet feel so remote. And you can go for hours at a time without seeing other people, especially during the week. But yet I have this urging for something even more remote, which is why I think Scotland is on my list for next year. You can also go hiking in another country. So I've gotten used to walking long distance trails here in England. Scotland's going to be a stretch for me outside of my comfort zone. But also, if I had done the Camino Portugués, which goes through Spain and Portugal, that would have been a stretch. Why would it have been a stretch? Because it's totally different country. It's a different experience. Now, I'm fluent in Spanish, so that makes it easier. But if you're not, that would add to the stretch outside of your comfort zone. I used to be conversational in Portuguese, but I've lost most of my Portuguese. So it would have been a stretch for me to go walking in a country where I don't speak the language anymore. And yes, Portuguese is very close to Spanish, so it wouldn't have been a stretch into my panic zone, but it was a stretch from my comfort zone into my stretch zone. So go hiking in a different country or do your thing, whatever it is that you do in a different country. camping, if you like camping and you're used to car camping or camping in campgrounds, try wild camping. Again, camp where it's legal in your country. In Scotland, it's really easy. You've got a lot of freedom. In England, not so much. But look into what is legal where you are and try wild camping. Also, if you're used to camping with friends at a campground or wild camping with friends, go alone. Camp alone at a campground. Wild camp alone. The first time I camped alone at a campground, I felt uncomfortable. It was definitely a stretch outside of my comfort zone. I was very close to home. I was at this campground that I hiked to from my home. So it was very familiar territory. I hadn't been to that place before, but it was still familiar territory. It was close to home. If I'd had an emergency, my husband could have driven in like 10 minutes and picked me up. So it was fairly easy stretch, but I still felt really uncomfortable alone in my tent. The first time I wild camped, even though I was with other people, there were 3 of us in our group, still, like I was aware of the fact that we were in the middle of nowhere in the Black Mountains in Wales. And I heard these wild ponies come down to drink in the stream at night. And at first I heard them and I was like, oh my God, someone's in our camp. What is this? And then I started hearing like horsey sounds and realized that it was the wild ponies. And that made me feel better. But it was a stretch outside of my comfort zone, even though I was with other people. So change things up, do things a little bit differently, and that will stretch you outside of your comfort zone. Again, don't stretch yourself into your panic zone. If you're used to camping with groups at a campground, don't travel to, I don't know, some other country and wild camp alone in bear country for the first time. Like, be reasonable. Also, do things that you're afraid of. So for me, and I think I've mentioned this before, Striding Edge, and I will link to that in the show notes, is this ridge in the UK, in England, that I've always been kind of fascinated by and freaked out by. And it's something that I never really wanted to do. It was just something that I kind of looked at and was like, yeah, I don't need to do that. Until I saw that Mark Reed, which is the guy that I've done a lot of navigation courses with, does a group walk or hike or climb across Striding Edge. And the second I saw that, I was like, okay, I need to do this. Unfortunately, it was all booked for this year, so I couldn't do it. But I look forward to booking it in next year because I suddenly realized I wanted to do this as a challenge for myself because I felt safe doing it with him. So do something that you're afraid of with someone guiding you or mentoring you or helping you that can support you through this. Just because you're stretching outside of your comfort zone doesn't mean that you need to do it on your own. So for me, going across Striding Edge will be a stretch for me, but it will be into the stretch zone and not panic zone because I'll be doing it with someone that I trust. Doing it on my own would be straight leap to panic. So again, be mindful in how you create these challenges for yourself. And finally, create challenges for yourself. Like, make a list of all the things that I've just talked about. Make a list of all the things that might challenge you, that are a stretch from your comfort zone into your stretch zone, that are a stretch into or a leap into your panic zone. Make a list of all the things that you've ever wanted to do, but that you're too scared to do, in the outdoors or in life. Make a list of all the changes you want to create in your life. Make a list of all the stuff, and then label them, stretch zone or panic zone. And then maybe if you do this in a spreadsheet, I know I'm a big spreadsheet person, but if you do them in a spreadsheet, you can order them as to which things are in the stretch zone and which things are in the panic zone, and then pick one and do it. So I would like to challenge you to take action today by creating that list for yourself of all the things you want to do in the outdoors and in your life, all the changes you want to make, all the things you want to learn. Label them stretch or panic, pick a stretch one and do it. And then once you've done it, do another one. So today I would like to suggest that you make the list and that you block out time in your calendar to do the first thing. And thirdly, get back to me when you've done it. I would love to hear from you. I get emails and Facebook messages from people all the time who have read my books and done some of the things that I've suggested. And I love hearing from people. So please drop me a line and let me know what you thought about this week's episode. You can email me at holly@hollywharton.com, or you can find me online and get in touch there. I would really love to hear from you. And thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would mean the world to me, and it would also help get this podcast out there to people who might benefit from it. So next week's episode is a guest. I'm really enjoying having guests on the show again. I avoided guests for so long, but it's been absolutely fantastic. So next week's episode is all about how outdoors adventures can help you to make better decisions in life. So my guest is Brad Borkin, and he's an author who wrote the book, When Your Life Depends on It, Extreme Decision-Making Lessons from the Antarctic. It's really, really juicy book. I really enjoyed it. So what are you going to learn in next week's episode? We talk about how people make decisions, both good decisions and bad decisions. We explore how we can learn to make better decisions in life. We also talk about things we can learn from Antarctic explorers. So even though they were doing their thing over 100 years ago, there's a lot we can learn from how they made decisions. We also discuss why it's so life-changing to recognize the teams we have in our lives. And I know that might sound weird, but we have teams that we may not be aware of, and they can really help us to make better decisions in life. Finally, we discuss how we can use our own outdoor adventures to make better decisions in life. So let's get started. I encourage you to do your list and do your first thing. That's a stretch outside of your comfort zone into your stretch zone. Thank you so much for listening. And remember to visit hollyworton.com/369 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollyworton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.